Here we go. Now we are. Okay.
We're on.
So in December for the solstice, Rachel was at the Consciousness Conference in Uluru, and she was doing some speaking, like you were doing, what were you
Did a
doing?
couple of presentations. I did
Yes,
one on
present.
SRA and MK Ultra with a couple of dear friends who happen to be related, Dodgy family, and also did a ley line presentation. It was wonderful, and we did a ceremony afterwards, which was really lovely.
Yes. So the ceremony and all of that, that was on the ley lines, the dragon lines more specifically.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk
yeah, yeah.
about what that means and the importance of the ley lines and them harmonizing.
Absolutely. So there's an amazing man called Rory Duff who, very interestingly, had some health problems leading up to December. He had prophesied that we were coming into permanent harmony time of the ley lines. Usually the ley lines only harmonize at the solstices and equinoxes. So that's the 21st of March, June, September, December every year, 2021st. He prophesied, so normally it would come into harmonization, for a couple of days of the year, but then it was just stretching out, stretching out, and stretching out. So that harmony time was ending up, was close to 180 days in years just gone by. Now we've come into this permanent harmony time, which he says will probably last. And he's a geobiologist, so he uses lots of techniques, dowsing, all of these interesting techniques to find out this information. So he's prophesied this will last for hundreds of years. I'm personally thinking it's probably going to be at least 1,000. That's just from a psychic point of view, or possibly forever. What I see this as, and previous to hearing his prophecy, I'd heard a lot of psychics talking about us coming into a fifth dimensional frequency with the earth and that transitioning us into this golden age, which has been prophesied by so many different ancient peoples. I didn't understand it until I heard Rory talk about this in an interview with Pam Gregory. She's an astrologer. And Pam, the way they bounce off each other, you could see that she could see that this was happening. And she was talking about, I think she mentioned different dimensions, and Rory's not really into that sort of thing. He's very scientific based. But from a psychic's point of view, this is extremely significant and exciting. What it means is that we've got some very dark souls, and I'm not going to use certain language because we're going to go up on YouTube, but they've been doing these particular ceremonies in the crossing of ley lines in portal spaces, which is where ley lines cross, you have a portal space where all the other dimensions come off. And they've been doing these ceremonies that are very dark and very cruel in these spaces to keep us in a third dimensional frequency for millennia. They've just lost that battle. And so our job now is to do the cleanup. And that's what I see with the next few years as well, is that we're coming into a healing and an education phase. We've had quite a bit of the education phase, but what I see over the next couple of years is that those who have not learnt what we all know here will suddenly learn very quickly what's really been going on. It's going to be a bit of a shock to a lot of people. I mean, we've all been waiting for this for a long time. But for those who don't understand it, they will need people like us to help them to see that yes, it's dark and scary, but it's in the past. That's the lucky thing for them. They'll be seeing it as it's falling apart, not as it's been quietly going on in the background. And those of us who've been aware of it have, been screaming to the hilltops about how bad it is, and nobody has been listening until now.
Great. So we're all very excited, but a lot of people are going to be really, well, a lot of people is, I've noticed it. A lot of people, they're having their emotions all over the place. They're having all these symptoms, that they don't know what's going on. They think they're sick. They think they don't understand that it's actually the ascension that's happening. So why don't you say, like, tell us about what is the ascension that's happening and when do you feel it started?
So I think for me, the pre precursor to us coming into this frequency, this golden age frequency, this fifth dimensional frequency, started around about 2015 when I started to see people's soul frequencies upgrade. So it is the collective consciousness that brings a planet into this higher frequency. It's so many different things all together, astrological alignments. But if our collective consciousness is not there on a high enough level, it's not a high enough percentage of us recognizing that this shift is occurring, it gets put off. So, and there's probably been times in the past where we could have all come to an ascension. Possibly the 70s might have been a time where that might have happened because we had the indigo children coming in. but now it's fully happening. So I think we've been on a soul journey as humanity, probably going through this process for quite a long time, but it's just kicked in the last, 15, 20 years. It's fully charged. Um, I think we can see the acting out of those who really don't want this to happen. We've seen it on the political stage. We've seen it in areas of the entertainment industry. That there's so much coming out now, and I'm seeing, at a certain point this year, I could see there's going to be a lot of. When was I seeing that? Towards the end of the year, we're going to have a lot of people in the entertainment industry and in the higher echelons, supposedly higher echelons, screaming and yelling about how they were bred for purpose and it's not really their fault and they were blackmailed and they had no choice. So we've seen a little bit of that with Zuckerberg recently. He didn't talk about it really as openly as he could have, but that's an example of where it's going to go, and we're going to see a lot.
So, with saying that, just stay on that topic for just a minute, because from where you've come from with all of that, what is your feelings with that? Because they are victims,
Yeah.
but at some point they still make a conscious choice to either stay or break away, right?
It's a really hard one, Angie, and I'm glad that I'm not in a situation where I would be the person passing judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, there'll be a lot of people who've grown up the way that I have, who have spoken out, who will be calling for blood. I don't personally think that's a great thing. I can understand where people are coming from, and there's people that abused me as a child that I would like to see. There's some vengeance in me as well, but it can affect your soul on a negative level if you go out looking for vengeance. It's not a high level frequency thing to do. So there has to be some understanding, I suppose, and everybody's at a different level of coping with that. So, I gave up my shame and I did my forgiveness thing a few years ago, or a couple of years ago. So I'm not in that frequency anymore, but I'm not judging anybody who feels that way. If people are, there's going to be a lot of talk of people, people will be opting out, people will be taken out. And then there will be the public backlash that will also cause people to go through trials. And again, that's in the last quarter of this year. There'll be a lot of that. So there's going to be a lot more about child trafficking coming out this year. It's going to be a very big year for that. And it's interesting. There's been some big markers when I did this channel. I'd just woken up, and a lot of this I was quite surprised by. So, when you're working with spirit, because things come up that you're just like, well, I've had to research that because I don't even know what that's talking about. Something about bootstrapping at one point, I had to look that up. I don't even know what that was until I looked it up, and it's something to do with people running businesses and not going and getting investments. They're doing it off their own back. So I think that, there's people are going to be looking at all these different things, all these different paradigms, all these different traps that we've been held in education and judiciary and the health system, food, the way the food's produced. A lot of that is going to start to be really unraveled over the next year. It's going to take years for it all to be healed and fixed and new things to come in. But this to me, because it's a 9 year, 2025, 2, 2, and 5 make up a 9, it's going to be this big, like, this is what's been going on. Oh my God, we've got to do something about it. So that's the process that we're going to go through.
I agree with you. And I agree with everything that you said, because that the frequency of the judgment and all of that, like, you've done your inner work. That's what I've been trying to get across to people for years, is when you do that inner work, you do that inner healing, you not only raise your vibration, you raise the vibration of the world. So you're helping heal the world as you heal yourself. And we're not to judge others, and even if they have done wrong, we're not the judge of that. Like, I don't know, I have like a different, I've received images, I've received stuff, like, as you are raising yourself, as the world is raising the vibration, as we're raising to a higher consciousness, leaving that lower vibrational stuff behind, it doesn't serve us anymore. There is no purpose to it. So it just kind of fades away. And when I say it's not on my timeline, it's not on the timeline I'm creating. So we can talk about that too. It's like the timeline that you're creating is your thoughts create your reality. The power of your words, the power of your thoughts. You talk about how your thought is the most important thing. So what you're reading, what you're listening to goes in here. So
Exactly. And that's, this is something that, I'm really passionate about, and this is why we connected over this and why I said, we should probably do this. Um, there is so much fear porn, and I talk about this a lot in interviews, but there's so much fear porn, and the whole point of fear porn, the whole point of Hollywood, the whole point of the projections that they make is to harness all of our collective consciousness in this really negative direction. What I want to do with this series is point out that we can put it in the direction that we want, and we are going to be doing that. So it's interesting. I was talking to Ben the other day about, he mentioned that the latency between what you see on social media and what comes out in the mainstream media used to be in Australia about 6 months. I'm not joking. Something would come out in social media. 6 months later, you'd see it in the paper. It's so ridiculous. It was hilarious. Now it's days.
yeah,
It's just they realize that they've lost the narrative and they've got to bring it out now. Otherwise, nobody's buying the paper. So with that also, because we're in this new frequency, what we think about will actually eventuate much faster. So we can project. So, I'm all about harnessing that collective consciousness for a positive outcome, because that's the power that we have. And, a lot of people who are interested in psychic work and watching these sorts of videos are already at a high frequency. Otherwise, they wouldn't have an interest in this. So they're the people that we need to be speaking to and to sharing this information so that we can push it in the right direction.
exactly. Because when we all are thinking the same together, like positively and creating together, there's massive power in that. The
Absolutely.
all the darkness, all of that just fades away. So why don't we talk about some of the symptoms of the ascension?
Oh, I don't know if everybody else has been feeling it, but I've had days of headaches, just shocking headaches, and I rarely get headaches unless I go into Adelaide where I was abused. The frequency in that city is vile. I live on the outskirts. So headaches, there can be just weird anxiety for no apparent reason. You don't even know where the anxiety is coming from. For some of us, I think we're picking up the collective anxiety because this big shift is occurring and people don't understand it. I think it's also the ambient frequency that we're used to has shifted and changed. And because it's at a higher frequency, that might come up as a feeling of anxiety. That will not last for very long. It's an acclimatization process. So we've got to just take that into consideration. Um, on a personal level, we're all being upgraded because our ambient frequency is higher. So we sort of have to upgrade. That means that we can, one of the symptoms is relationships changing. So as you get to a higher frequency, the people around you, if they don't want to do the work and they don't want to come to a higher frequency, will fall away, be reactive, might attack you. Um, and that's really hard if it's, family or really close friends or partners or whatever else. That's really, really hard work. So that's something to take into consideration. It's not that we're all, horrible people and pushing people away. It's that everybody's coping with this in the best way that they can, and it's not always going to happen all at the same time. Um, there are things like these weird sort of peaks of sound that happen. I've heard other psychics talking about this, like a suddenly one of the ears will just go really high pitched noise for a while and then go away. That's one of the symptoms. Lethargy, brain fog, um, moodiness as well. So, and it's interesting. One side of my head is now just pins and needles. So really weird bodily sensations will also happen as well that normally don't happen. And it's so bizarre because I can feel it exactly. There's a line down the center of my head and it's only happening on this side. So weird things like that, physical sensations that are not normal that you don't normally have. My suggestion with that is that the higher your frequency, the less capable your body is of taking in toxins. So just try to find the best food that you can find. Try to stay away from pharmaceutical medications, alcohol, really sweet food, junk food, those sorts of things, packaged foods, manufactured stuff. Keep as far away from that as possible. And yes, you might have a detox process. If you give up some of those things all at once, you put yourself into a little bit of shock. So try and do it sensibly. Don't overdo it. Don't do it too fast, but just take really listen to your body. So there's some of the symptoms and the ways to ameliorate that. I'm sure you've got some really good ideas as well, because I know your background in medicine is spectacular, because you've learned so much because of issues, and I've learned a lot too because of issues that my body's had. Um, you can make it easier by being out in nature. That's my number one suggestion. Go out in nature.
Nature. Nature's always my go-to as well. Like I can get grounded and connect with the animals in nature so much easier than people sometimes. But
Oh,
I have,
animals are wonderful.
yes, animals. Last year I was start having a problem with a lot of my clothes and I had to switch to like 100% organic cotton,
Yeah,
everything, like my shirt, like everything. If I don't, I break out in a rash. So my sheets, all of it. So I mean, it's
yeah.
everything. You get so much less, you have less tolerance to anything synthetic. So
Thank you for that. Thank you. I keep forgetting because skin will often show it because it's the largest organ in the body, and that'll often show it before anything else.
yes, and sleep. This whole
Yes.
week I have had, I've been up until 5 or 6 in the morning. So yeah. But then the week before I was sleeping 10 or 11 hours like sound. Like I slept like when I was a teenager or something. So it's all over the place. My sleep's all over the place. And when I don't sleep, then of course I'm grumpy and I'm like not able to function as well. But then when I do sleep, I'm like, woo, I feel great.
Yeah,
So
I forgot a sleep thing too. It's shocking. Yeah, so I'm all over the place at the moment as well. Last night was not fun.
yeah,
But people also need to take into account if there's a full moon as well, that the latent light will also mess with your sleep,
yeah,
because of circadian rhythm and the pineal gland picks up on the light. So that
yes,
can make it fun too.
yes. So, with the ascension symptoms, and then knowing that we are in the 5D, we're ascending into the 5D, I guess you would say. I feel like we're in it. Like I feel like we're in it. I know other people are ascending to it. So my next question for you is how long do you feel that acclimating to the 5D will last? Do you think it's infinite, as in each soul has time to acclimate to the 5D or beyond, or do you think there's just a window of time allowed?
So I just immediately got 2 years.
Okay.
So it's a 2-year process, but for those of us here probably have already gone through the process of acclimatizing.
Yes.
It's those that have not woken up yet that the next 2 years will be fundamental. In November this year, we would have been halfway through the 4 years of truth that the astrological alignments in November of 2023 were prophesying. So we're going through this 4 years of truth. So that would make sense that it would last until 2026, or probably going into 2027. But I got 2 years. And my guides told me back in 2023 that we're going to be sick of the truth about halfway through. So that was interesting when I did this channeling of what's coming up for this year. And, I sort of got to the November point and I thought, oh, yeah, right. They did tell me that. I forgot about that. So, yeah, it makes sense for what came through.
Well, I kept telling people like there is a tsunami of truth coming. Like I
Yeah.
don't think you understand how big this wave of truth is coming and when it lands, like there will be so much truth. You'll be swimming in the truth and you'll be like there's too much
Yeah.
truth. So see, we're getting the same thing because
Yeah.
it's just this big wall, this big wave that's coming. It's massive and it hasn't arrived yet. It is coming. So it's and a lot of people they're going to have their minds blown because a
They
lot
are.
of
They
us that are
are.
here, we know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So
But if you take the last 4 years, and most of the people here were probably awake before then, but say you take the last 4 years and you condense that into one, and then take the last several decades, particularly, the corrupt countries, Western countries that we all most likely come from, and the history of that's all going to come out. So the next couple of years are just going to be, just like you said, a tsunami. But it's a necessary one because you can't build if you don't know what the foundation is.
right. Well, if you think about it, for me, like I feel like I've always been awake at some capacity, but for me, like when I got the Lyme diagnosis is when like I really got shoved like into like having to be awake with everything. And then I will say, like, in the last few years, like, okay, So when I found Emma's channel and I found you and Jeanette Archer and I was learning your stories, that really like that was the final shove for me, I feel. And where I just realized like, whoa, like everything just started clicking together. So we've all been through this awakening process and we're going, so all of these people that haven't been through it, or maybe they're just in it a little bit, I feel like they're just going to be shoved into it. There isn't going to be any easiness with it. You know, like we all had a
No,
choice where we eased ourselves into it. You could take a break from it. They're not going to get a break. So
no. We're going to see mental health is going to, it's already
yes,
stretched, so it will get stretched again.
yes,
But I also see that there will be true healing for those sorts of things. So a
yeah,
lot of the time when you've got mental health problems, it's other people's reaction to it that makes it so difficult because it's like, oh, go over there. That's horrible. I can't deal with that. Um, what because it's going to be a lot of people doing it all at once, there will be true healing, as in, right, you're having a trauma response. This is actually what that means. I'm doing Max Lowen's trauma and recovery course at the moment. It just makes so much sense. My whole life is like, oh my God, if only I knew this way back then. Um, so the way that we react to things is based upon our trauma responses. If you understand that, you can have true healing and you can do it quite quickly. It doesn't have to be something that gets stretched out for over decades like it was for me. You can do it in a timely way with other people so that you don't feel alone.
yeah,
So, I think everybody's traumatized at this point on earth. Everybody's got some trauma, whether they've had an unpleasant childhood or something horrible has happened to them, or it's just the last 4 years that have
yes,
traumatized them. And that was all done on purpose to keep us under control, so
yes,
that you work from a part of the brain that cannot think logically and only just does what they're told, because you're in a childlike state where you just need to be told what to do.
100%.
And then they'll never put us back in that anesthetized state again. It's
Mhm.
it's just not possible because there's too many have woken up at this point, and we're able to then pull the threads together of those who haven't woken up yet and help them to do it.
Right. Now, do you think the ones that haven't woken up, do you think that, because this is, I know this is a question that Holly has, because she keeps asking. So is the Earth like, is it splitting? Is it splitting? Is like the 3D is like five, like that? I'll let you explain. I don't have that splitting thing.
So it's really a very bizarre concept to me. So I've been shown this vision multiple times, and I was shown it again at Uluru. I went for a tour. This was before the actual ceremony. I went for a tour, and while I was on the tour, I got this that the Earth is bifurcating. Now, I'd had that a couple of years beforehand because I started to hear these fifth dimensional frequency, shifts, and it was going to be 3D Earth and there's going to be 5D Earth. And I saw this like mitosis when you see a cell divide. And so that was what I was shown, and I thought, doesn't make any sense. I can't deal with that. I'm just going to ignore it. It's been shown to me so many times now. And then again in the ceremony, it happened again. It was shown to me again. So it's a bifurcation. So the only way I can get my head around it is that those who stay in 3D Earth will think that we've all gone, died off, whatever. And for us, those that refuse to grow up, or sorry, grow up, that's a horrible way to put it, refuse to understand the truth and wake up to it, will probably be seen as, and I do wonder if this is what I kept getting, there was an attempt to bring about a zombie apocalypse like in the Bible. The only way I can see it from a fifth dimensional point of view is those people won't necessarily seem dead to us, or maybe they will, but they might just seem like they're not with us mentally. And obviously these things that went in the arms can cause that. I do not see the kind of zombie apocalypse that they've been trying to create, though. I saw that at first because that's what I was programmed to believe. My father made certain that I believe that. I look at it now and I recognize that part of that was trying to, again, harness that collective consciousness for some sort of negative outcome. It's definitely not going to be like that. What it's going to be is that some people have deleterious effects from what's gone in here, or the food that they've been eating, or whatever, but that anything can heal, anything can be healed. So I think, there will be some of those that on a conscious soul level will not want to come into the 5D earth. They just won't want to, and we can't force them. So that's what I see. There's this bifurcation is We're already seeing it. I hate talking about it, but we're already seeing this, what they call the big die-off. It's horrible. It's just horrific. Um, but on a soul level, it's like when you rescue people, you take away their ability to rescue themselves. So it doesn't mean we don't work hard to help these people, but what right do we have to decide, well, you're not going to have your process, so you could get to a higher level, or you could decide what you want to do next, because I'm going to make sure you do this. It's very, very hard um, to rationalize because a lot of us want to help, desperately want to help.
So I'll share what I've received, and then I'll share my download that I received with the, the different dimensions. So what I was, because I was having the same conversation like with Holly and with you, like with about what's the separation, what's going to happen. So I feel like we're raising ourselves up to a higher consciousness. What doesn't serve us, what no longer serves us, won't be around. So the analogy that I've been able to come up with, and from like I read it on someone's website how she was talking about raising up, but what came up to me was like when you move away, you get into a new neighborhood, and at first you talk to your old friends and family every day because you miss them, and you love them, and you're not acclimated to your new neighborhood yet. But as you start moving around, as you get out into the neighborhood, your kids start going to school, you start meeting new people, you start talking to your old family and friends less and less as you get around your new family and friends. That's what's happening. And after a while, those conversations of talking to them, it becomes not every day. It's maybe once a week. Then it's like once every 2 or 3 months. Then it goes to like holidays. And then sometimes years pass. That's what I feel is like going to happen with
Brilliant analogy.
the ascension.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's easy to conceive of. That's a really good analogy. Yeah.
So, so then the download that I received was, um, so it was, I keep telling people, like, you create your own timeline with your thoughts. So when I say I do not consent, I do not comply, this is not on my timeline, because fear is not in the higher consciousness. Fear does not exist. So if you have fear, then you're not going to be able to ascend to the higher consciousness. So when I tell people have no fear, release the worry so you can create your own timeline. So I received this download where I saw 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D. And in between the dimensions was all these little dotted lines that was going across in between the dimensions. And I was told those were different timelines that people were creating. So they were in between the dimensions, and there was the dimensions and all this. So my thought was that there was all these different dimensions representing the realities being created by people. So my thoughts are those temporary timelines, are they going to merge as these people heal and grow? Are they going to merge to go up? Because technically there was some timelines, the dotted lines were in between the 3 and 4D. Technically those dimensions are going to be collapsing, fading away as we're ascending higher. So what happens to those people? Do they fade away too? Are they leaving? Like it's just
So this is the fascination with all the different dimensions that are in existence. So I believe there are 11 main dimensions. There's also a 12th dimension that's like the the God consciousness, I guess is the way you describe it. But everybody's perspective is also a dimension.
yes.
And we are each, with our chakras, we are connected to every dimension as well. So we are all collectively our own dimension interacting in a different dimension. So yes, some of these will collapse down because some of those souls will decide that they don't necessarily want to be in a a physical dimension. I'm going to start talking about a physical dimensional existence anymore. So I think some will just fade away, or we won't be conscious of them. It's but again, I even a physicist, I think, would find it difficult to put these, concepts into words. But I always like to go back to quantum physics. When you look at an atom surrounded by, neutrons and electrons that are whizzing around in empty space, the only way to really understand physical matter is to recognize that there's all these different dimensions that interact with every single atom. every single minute particle on this planet and in all the dimensions. We are all interdimensional beings. So if I would just look at it from that perspective, I'd say that it's a bit like the Matrix, I guess, in a way. For those souls that we're no longer conscious of or are not operating in our frequency anymore, they'll still be existing, but elsewhere.
Yes, exactly. So they're going to exist elsewhere. It's not like, so in a way, it is going to split and separate, but we are evolving to a higher frequency. They're going to maybe stay, or maybe they'll go to the fourth dimension or whatever. But over time, they'll be able to acclimate maybe up. Like you said, there's a 2 year period to be able to get up there. Now, when we did our spaces last year, we were wondering if maybe we would be able to help them, like the spirit world, how we see the spirit world now, if
Yeah.
we were going to be spirits in their world, like helping them. Do you still see that?
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So like a guide. So
Yes.
somewhere in the consciousness of that individual, we might be penetrating. So here we're just putting out videos.
Right.
But there it might be something that's like a, I don't know, an egregore or some sort of, collective consciousness for them that's also bringing them or giving them the option to
Yes.
look at this. And there are, it's whenever you see these really big shifts in consciousness in civilizations, it's often the seers that, have to bring it in first, which is scary. It's very scary, talking about this sort of thing and being psychic and, it's not an easy thing to do,
Mhm.
which is why I'm so impressed that everybody here is, showing their face and also those who, just showing their name, because it's a scary thing because people have gone after people like us for millennia.
Yeah.
I've lost my fear. So what you were saying before about that, the fear not being part of this frequency, it's just gone. It went when I was in Uluru. I had a lot of fears going up to that. It's all gone now. So there's the shift for me was the fear going away.
Very good.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know, something happened. Well, I was ascending to the diamond frequency. We can talk about that. Was something I forgot to say. We should talk about the soul frequencies and the auras, because
Yeah.
you and I both have went up to diamond frequency. And well, I said I wanted you to check mine just to make sure I wasn't wrong.
It's there, don't worry.
So, but I could feel it. I could feel it happening, and I didn't know. I'm always like so for me to be like how I am, and then when I'm going through an ascension, I'm always like, "What? Really? That's happening?" But I had all the symptoms, and I didn't recognize it until 3 weeks after it happened, and I was checking my aura, and I'm like, "Holy moly, I've went up." So
Yeah.
I felt it though. Like when I look back, I
Hence, is this when you had to get rid of all of the synthetic fibers as well?
No. Ironically, that was like over the summer. That was when I was going to Blue Crystalline, was over the summer. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I went up
Okay.
2 soul frequencies like
Yeah.
last year. That was just crazy to me to go up
Which,
that.
which, when you think about it, when I first started doing aura readings as a professional for a living, not just because I was a child being exploited, I was, people didn't shift. They would stay that frequency for long periods of time. So it's just gone absolutely up so many notches. And I was seeing people do 3 soul frequencies in a year. And that's not recommended. But, if you're on an ascension process, you'll just
Yeah.
go up. It's just your body has to catch up while you're doing it. And it's intense. So for me, this is the weird part. This is a bit gross and people might get a bit freaked out, but the physical representation for me every time I go up a soul frequency with the last 3 soul frequency shifts is I've got these, or I had these sebaceous warts on my body that were quite large and they come off. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
weird. And then there's just a discoloration. So instead of this horrible, warty thing, witches and warts, I'm not a witch, but I'm sure people will call me that. They just come off. So this is one of the signs that I've had, which, because otherwise I wouldn't believe it. Um, but then again, you can feel it in so many other different ways. And this is one of the lovely things about the connection that you and I have, because we do see the soul frequencies the same,
Yes.
which is really lovely. And I do teach this in my course, and you do as well. Um, the higher crystalline frequencies are what's bringing in what's what the children are at the moment, and the diamond and the emerald frequency is what these little ones that are coming through. That's the frequency that they're at, which is why I find it so hilarious that the mainstream media is trying to call them the beta generation. I
Yes.
mean, how much indoctrination did we have around, you know, alpha men and beta men, as in beta men are just, they're just underlings. They're the alphas. The alphas are the ones that are in control. So they're trying already to denigrate these children as babies and call this generation underlings, beaten down, beta. So, or secondary. And these children are not secondary, not at all. They've come in to do the incredible work that, once this generation comes to their 20s, 30s, the world is going to be a completely different place, completely different, and really amazing.
Have you seen like life expectancies being longer? Me too.
I've been getting it's averaging at around 120 very soon.
Hmm.
And on that note, I want to mention too that one thing that came in recently with a channeling was those that have had this intervention. Um, we replace every cell in the body every 10 years. But what I was shown, because of this ascension frequency, it'll happen in 6 years. So those who get to the 6 year mark will have a new system, and none of the supposed long-term effects will be there.
Yes, I was receiving that as well because I don't know if you were noticing this with people's auras, um, with people that I knew that had it, there was like a dome over their aura. Now I've noticed
Wow.
with some people it's been more of like a cloud, but like a
Okay.
dark cloud, but like, it's but it looks like it's dissipating. But then in others it's like it's like a seal almost. I didn't know if you'd noticed this or not.
I didn't see it as such, but what I get is that the soul is somewhat disenfranchised from the physical body,
Okay.
but that it can come back in.
Yes.
So some people describe, I know a lot of psychics who work with clients have been saying, oh, they've got no soul and they're this and they're that. And it's a horrible thing to say about somebody.
Right.
The soul is still attached to that body unless another host has come in, which is a rare thing, unless it's an attachment. It's very rare for a walk-in to come in and completely push the other soul out completely. That's extremely rare. On the other side of that, people organ donors, there's usually more than one soul involved with that physical existence, because the soul of the organ donation also comes with it, which is why I don't recommend it, because a soul can't pass on properly when that
Right.
happens. Rarely they do, and that person doesn't even have to take the anti-rejection drugs, but that's a rare occurrence. So I liken it more that the soul is more out, it's a dissociation, but I keep being reassured that they can come back in.
I was taking it as with the dome and stuff. I was receiving information that there was going to be um soul trials that they were going to
Okay.
have to go through for healing. With the
Okay.
upgrades, with the DNA, like, because with the Ascension, your DNA is being upgraded, your cells are being upgraded. You are just like with your warts disappearing. I've had, because I've had, I had to go back on treatment the last couple of years. So I had inflammation weight on. Well, I've had 25 pounds come off, and not all at once, but like I've I've got 25 pounds off. So I've got
Wow.
more to go, but I feel like every day I just feel like it's just melting away. Of course, I did command it to. I was like, all right, I've had enough of this, like, go. But I do think this last ascension had something to do with it, like
Yeah.
getting it to start going, because it's averaging about 2 pounds a week, which I think is healthy, you know?
Wow, that's brilliant. And yeah, it is healthy, because again, that extra weight, whether it's fluid or fat, will store the toxins that
Yeah.
might have been accumulating. So you've got to do it reasonably gently. You don't want to do it too
Yeah.
quickly. Well, I'm so happy for you. That's fantastic, because that takes, that means the inflammation's going down.
Yes, 100%. And you know how
Fantastic.
hard I work with my health and stuff, and I don't eat
Yeah.
anything. My mom can attest to that. I don't eat anything to like warrant that kind of weight gain, but it truly was like from inflammation. But all the stuff I do the mushroom tinctures and all of that, but it finally it took about a year, but it's
Wow.
finally been working. And then it just seems like the Ascension in December just like helped just plug it in and just like, here we go. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
impressed. Well, hopefully that will happen for a lot of people too.
Yes, that's why I'm saying it because I think that this is like with when you start, especially when people start taking care of themselves and their health, if they really start eliminating all that stuff from their diet and start watching, what their water, filtering their water, using, all of that, start really taking care of themselves and not just the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, it's all going to come together and they're going to notice things too. Because it's not just a physical thing.
Yeah, it's on so many different levels. So also every time you go up in soul frequency, your psychic abilities will improve. Now
Yes.
that's provided you're not taking in fluoride and not taking in lots of toxins because that even glyphosates can calcify the pineal gland. But for those, I mean, I'm sure everybody who's here knows about, the little calcite crystals in the pineal gland. That is like our Wi-Fi. And the higher your soul frequency, the more of that comes on board. So your Wi-Fi gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So you pick up more and more information from the Akashic. So that's another thing to be really, enjoying the process of getting to these higher frequencies. Yes, your body might struggle a little bit at times with the ascension process, but to have all of those extra abilities on board really does help as well. And I think over the next couple of years things like telepathy and telekinesis will get more and more common.
Yes. And I will tell you this, I have noticed I have been since my recent ascension to diamond. I say platinum, you say diamond, but um I have
I
been
usually call it platinum.
I know. I always say I'm always over here in my own little world, like
Yeah.
I have been answering people's questions before they ask. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
So at first it was, but you know what? I used to do that when I was a kid and in my teenage years. And then a lot of my stuff went away when I you know, got the Lyme. I didn't know I had it, but like a lot of my stuff did. So
And
it's
that's really
cool.
a fascinating thing that happens to a lot of children. And the only way I could really understand it when the downloads came through about why that would be, if you've got a soul that has a certain frequency or volume, perhaps, and you put that in a tiny body, you're going to activate more chakras. And as that person grows up, if they're not really at that full on high frequency that allows all the chakras to be open, as they get older and bigger and their body is larger, the number of chakras that opens lessens. So that was the only way I could really understand it, and that's how it was described to me. So you might have someone that has all the psychic abilities. So basically, um, the third eye and the crown chakra and the outer chakras in the soul, in the aura, are the ones that channel through psychic information.
Yeah.
So if you haven't got those channels open, if those chakras aren't operable, you won't get that psychic information. So it's usually only those souls that have gone through a lot of work and opened up those chakras, gotten to a high enough level, who really have those, those openings and can pick up on things.
And we have more than just seven chakras. I mean, we have the little ones all over our bodies, but we have more than just the seven main ones. So,
Yeah.
and our senses, we have more than five senses. So,
Yes, way more, way more. I've heard 18, I've heard 23. There's a lot more senses.
okay. So, do we want to go into what you've been receiving?
Sure. All right. All right. So I'll run through what I've been shown. Again, when it comes to prediction, even though I'm going to be writing down what I'm seeing month by month or what I've been shown month by month, doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen in that exact month. And this is one of the, the bugbears of being a psychic is people just latch on to you said this would happen then. And if it happens a month later, they don't care. They
Right.
don't care because you said it was going to happen in that month. So they get really, really one-eyed about it. Like, you told me this. So none of this is financial advice. And if it doesn't happen in this month, I'm not invested in that. I don't really care. So you can troll me as much as you like. Whoever might be watching this, it doesn't matter. It won't affect me. Okay, um, so January obviously has been all about these horrible fires. I got that it's actually going to expose, I mean, clearly the LA fires have been caused by smart meters. There's some sort of laser effect because of the blue items not burning up. That is just absolutely on everybody's mind right now. It's so painfully obvious. I keep waiting for the collective consciousness to aim back this powerful energy that they're sending out back to the facilities that are creating it, and that will happen. They'll start destroying themselves at some point. I wish it had happened already, but it's coming. Um, so that I feel is that exposure. I also think that's trying to just, as much as they know that that's going to destroy their smart city plans, that is also a distraction from all of the deaths coming out because of this thing in the arm. So
Yes.
they're playing the game of look over here, don't look over here, even though looking over here is going to expose us. We don't want you looking over here.
Right.
It's yeah. I got in February, there's going to be more of that information coming out. So there's going to be this massive backlash against any kind of smart anything. That also, the car industry is going to completely change anything to do with these kind of electric things later in this year. There's going to be a big backlash against that as well. Um, so in February, I feel that there's going to be a lot more calls for, justice on who called for these fires. That is going to absolutely bite them in the bum. Some of them are going to be just put out to slaughter, basically, by the rest of the cult. And I think we're pretty connected on who that would be. Someone's a nephew of somebody else, and they're all interconnected, and that's going to be big. That will also put the spotlight back on those nursing home deaths that occurred because of particular policies. And they pretty much started in those areas. So it reverberates to other states as well. I also got something around tomatoes again. So this is really left field, but they're doing things in my state where the tomato growers are just absolutely being destroyed because of some tomato blight. So they want to completely eradicate all of the tomato plants. They've got to put something else in. So we've been hearing about how they're going to inject this stuff into those plants. So my suggestion is to just keep away from tomatoes for the next, period of time. Grow your own. It's not difficult to grow a tomato. You can grow a tomato plant on a patio,
Yeah.
and just don't eat it in the months where they're not. It's not seasonal because we shouldn't eat fruits and vegetables that aren't seasonal anyway.
Right. Right.
I got very strongly Ali Carter's allegations coming full frontal in February. I know she's been talking about things for a long time. I wasn't even thinking about her. That came in really strong. Her stuff's going to come out. I also got a lot of migration from state to state, and they showed me, particularly in the United States, Winnebagos particularly. For some reason, lots and lots of Winnebagos. So I don't know what that was about, but I thought I'd bring it in. And I do get that also along throughout the year, people migrating, but they're going back to where they came from, um, all over the world. So those who fled from certain areas because it wasn't safe will go home. And I see that air travel gets less terrorist obsessed towards the end of the year as well. So there's a freeing up of movement in those areas. I think some of the biometric attempts to control everybody will start to dissolve in the airports as well towards the end of the year. March, I got the child trafficking thing. Australia and New Zealand will go absolutely through the roof. Big cases blowing open. I also got the abuse of women in the car racing industry might come in at the same time. Again, very important that that comes out, but it will be like, don't look at the child trafficking, look at the car industry.
Yeah.
So I saw that sort of all being sort of around the same time. In my country, they're obsessed with shark attacks at the moment. So that will also be a big focus. Look at the sharks. Oh, big predator, danger, danger, danger. Look over there. If you shark attacks are such a tiny, tiny fraction of the deaths that occur, but they love to focus on other predators.
Yes.
I also got for March the bootstrapping that I said I had to look up. It's something to do with people running their own businesses without any kind of investment or financing. In April, I got food security being a big thing. Now, I am not saying that people are going to start starving. Absolutely not. I think the focus will be on people trying to create fear porn that there's not enough food. But what I actually see happening is I see a lot of farmers, and I know this is already happening, particularly in my country, farmers saying, come onto my land, have your own plot. We
Yes.
will work together. I will help you to harvest. There will be money exchange, there'll be food exchange, and that's going to absolutely explode. That there's going to be so
Right.
many people doing that. The government won't be able to regulate it. They'll
No.
go mental trying to, they won't be able to.
Yeah.
Also, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on governments trying to control food. Supermarkets at some point very soon will start handing it out because they realise that they're on the partly because no one will buy the manufactured foods anymore. So again, around April, a lot of the understanding around what's actually in foods will come out. So people will be not wanting the manufactured foods. So I feel that the supermarkets then just try and hand it out to people. A lot of these manufacturing companies, I think, will start to collapse at that point. So it doesn't mean it all happens all in 1 month, but it's a big start for the mainstream. In May, not wanting to create any kind of fear porn, but I think they're going to try and bring in the horse Hendra virus rubbish. They've tried everything else, so they're going to go for the horses. They did a big cull of the Brumbies in Australia at Mount Kosciuszko National Park. Absolutely horrific. And I think that was a collective consciousness attempt to get everybody really depressed and upset and then bring in this fear around the horses. For some reason, I'm getting it for May. So you might see some of that. It's very short-lived. People will not be scared. It won't work. Again, the food distribution thing that I mentioned, the backlash against the food industry in April, then the food industry sort of trying to ameliorate that by giving out to the needy and the homeless, all this packaged rubbish that nobody would want to eat anyway. And it's just a desperate PR attempt, which won't really work. June, and I also, people will be really focused on growing in their own gardens, whether it's a co-op out in with a farmer or it's growing in their own gardens. I see that being a big thing for that time as well. And obviously different parts of the year are different for different sort of hemispheres. So for some, if it's cold at that time, it's no good. In Australia, you can grow all year round. I feel June, I've been getting this for years, there's going to be some shift in the banking sector. And I know we are talking about this off camera before. I do see an inflation drop. I don't see, as we're discussing, neither of us can see a big depression. I don't see that. There might be attempts to try and make it look like that. It won't be like that. All I see is that people think about new ways of banking. So this might be another reason why I saw the bootstrapping for, I think it was March. People will recognize they don't need help. They don't need to borrow money. So that's getting us completely out of the slave system. The whole mortgaging, giving money to people before they've earned it, it's all about keeping you enslaved. Because obviously they get the cream of the crop and they charge you interest that's obscene. Possibly also, again, this is not financial advice, some sort of debt forgiveness in that June period. And it depends on the country. But that, for some reason, I just got that might start in the UK, which is a strange place for it to start with everything they're doing, but that's what they just showed me then. And more truth coming out about these things, more and more and more and more. So June's going to be another cascade of that sort of information. I see at the end of June a lot of fireworks and celebration. Now, as I said to you before off camera, 4th of July is more about celebration. I see it for the end of June. So something's going on in June that brings out all of this celebration and joy. More of that, obviously, in July. More truth around what was going on with this horse fear rubbish that happened in May. So by July, again, the latency, it's very soon that, once they try and bring something out, very soon afterwards, the truth comes out about it. July is going to be really full on with the information about Gates, Epstein. There's a lot of prosecution starting in that month. Royal family, the different estates, all these powerful estates. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny about those. The fashion industry will be absolutely scrutinized. More about the supermarkets, and I've got to be really careful what I say here, but some of what I've talked about happened in my childhood with, we farm certain animals. Well, there's other farming that goes on, and that will come out very clearly. So in a big way. So July is going to be quite intense. I got unusual weather patterns for August. Again, this could be the opportunity where that collective consciousness goes back at the facilities that are creating some of these cold snaps. Again, it's actually quite useful because it makes the whole climate rhetoric fall apart, absolutely disintegrate. So every time they try and do something that's from a playbook, it will disintegrate very quickly. So it almost feels like it all just sort of happens in August and it's done.
Yeah.
September, I got two main things: aliens. But I don't see, look, we have coexisted with these entities forever. So why would they suddenly attack? I don't believe that's going to occur. It'll just be like, focus on that, focus on that. So that's all I see for that. It's very short-lived again. But I also got trials and for people, so that I've been doing the wrong thing for a long time. So it really ramps up in that September period. All the playbooks will be obvious. Albert Pike, the head of the Freemasons, his prophecy around the Third World War, all of that information will just be in the mainstream. And his plan was that there would be a Third World War fomented by the Illuminati agents taking advantage of the differences between Zionists and Islamists. Well, that will just completely collapse because everybody will be looking for it. Most of us here know all about that, but a lot of people don't. So that will come out mainstream big time. And again, I feel that this is the media, this is the people in all of these supposed higher echelons saying, that was the plan. We got stuck in it. We didn't have a choice. So that's where the complaints come out that I was talking about earlier. Poor me, I was bred for purpose. And I do feel sorry for some of these people, absolutely. But I think there's going to be so many of them doing it all at once. It's actually, I do feel sorry for them because it's just not going to work. So, but again, I'm glad I'm not the one who has to make the judgments. It'll be the collective consciousness that judges of what happens to these people. And there'll be a lot of discussion around rehabilitation and, who's worth saving? Is anybody worth saving? Can you save a psychopath? Trauma is caused, narcissism is caused by trauma a lot of the time. So all of those sorts of questions will come up. Pretty interesting time. October, I got mass migration again. I also got open borders, but I didn't see it as in people being invaded. I saw it as people going home. And that's the only way I can put it. It's people going home. A lot of focus on people understanding what true health is, that it's not a pill that you take, and that going to your GP is not the best option. I also got, this is where I got the air travel not being so biometric and terrorist related. I saw the car industry, it's already happening, but the car industry will pretty much stop producing electric. And lithium batteries, I feel, will no longer be something that's even a consideration because the understanding is how dangerous they are. There will also be no more smart cars because people will understand that they can be remotely affected. And there's been so much about that. So it makes sense that this would come out, but I wish it was happening earlier in the year, quite frankly, but I got it for October. And again, any of this could be happening opposite around. This is just the way that the information came through to me. So if it doesn't happen in this month, whatever. I see community consultation being an absolute focus. So instead of us looking for some figurehead to tell us what to do, people in communities will be working together. So what do we need? What do we want? How do we get the council to actually operate for us? Kicking people out of council positions that aren't doing the right thing, reconfiguring councils. And I again see everything going back to a local level. I never, ever, ever in the future see this globalist takeover that they get what they want. And in that October month, towards November, I also got the UN pretty much collapsing, WHO collapsing. Again, this is absolute, it's my dream come true. So I tried to make sure when I was doing all of this that I wasn't just thinking, this is what I really want to happen. This just came in and I thought, well, I'm going to pass it on because that's what I saw. So I see a lot of fleeing of these individuals, and I also see a lot of vigilantism with regards to these individuals who've caused all this damage. And again, it's up to people how they feel about that. November, so I also got food being really, really significant in October as well. So these manufacturing plants that have been producing all of this crap also completely collapsed, a lot of them in October. And then November, I got being the education revolution, which is really exciting. So people looking into childcare centres and the abusive practices in there, how it's an indoctrination situation. There can be ways to look after little ones, but putting them into large centres with people that come in on shifts who aren't watching them the whole time, who are not watching what happens to them the whole time, can be really, really dumb. And in Australia, they're really trying to pull, one of our ex-prime ministers is really trying to push for children to be forced to go into childcare centres from the age of 3. from 3. It's just obscene. So that will all just be completely scrutinized. I see deans, heads of unis, colleges quitting. I see, a lot of people opting out on a physical level. And the allegiances of what these universities and what their plans were with all of the wokeism and stuff, that's all going to come out as well. So that will all be really very obvious. I see a lot of political elections coming up, or the talk of political elections in the countries that haven't gotten rid of their despots. In November, there'll be a lot more of that. I saw December being like the culmination of this massive backlash. So it'll be certain targeted groups. So again, when you've got these really dark souls that all prey on each other and they all blackmail one another, they will pick off ones that they just want to, you're the sacrificial lamb, we'll push you out. By December, so many of these groups have already been targeted and they've got very little left. That's when we get into the political classes, the judiciary. Those are going to be under scrutiny in a big, big way. So that's what I saw for this year. It's a lot. It's the precursor for what happens over the next 10 years, because this healing and education phase doesn't happen in 1 year.
Right.
It's the collapse before the rebuild, but
Yeah.
this stuff has to come out. So that's what I was shown. Does any of that correlate with what you've been seeing?
Yeah. Well, okay. So like it was at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, because my mom and I, we used to do lives on Facebook and we would, like give predictions that we'd received or whatever, but I only did it for like a short time. And then because I was told I should do it and then I was told I should stop. So it was just a few that we did. But I was shown then all three-letter organizations would fall, all religion,
Oh,
all
okay.
like universities, like uh I don't know how to say this, you know, all those places that make the medicine that you take not going to be there anymore.
Yep.
How people are trained to be a doctor or whatever is going to change. Like literally everything, like I was shown there the government, everything was going to be different. It just, and I kept I've been being told since 2000, I want to say 2017, simpler times are coming. And I was telling Natasha about this, and she's like, "What do you think that means?" I think you think it means more like holistic. I do think it means like holistic, but I think it means more of like what you're talking about with growing our own food and farmers saying, "Here, come to the land, I will help you like farm your own food, we'll figure it out." But I also see like a bartering system. I've been shown like there's a bartering system where yes, we still have money. Money is energy. We still use money, but there's a bartering that happens instead of
Yep.
it all being so money focused, because the simpler times is bringing in simpler times of where all that materialistic stuff, all that stuff is not so important. For this year in particular, January and February, like last year, we talked about this on the spaces. I was seeing January and February as like totally blacked out. It just was
Yeah.
like a big chaotic storm happening. It's not to scare anyone. It's just saying that there's a lot of stuff that's happening at once. A lot of truths coming out, a lot of things happening. I also felt like with the inauguration happening here in the States, there was going to be some things happening with that going into February that was going
Yeah.
to, provide some chaos. March is all whited out. It's a whiteout. So like when you're in a snowstorm, it's whited out. You can't see anything. I don't feel like it's like we can't see anything. I feel like it's almost like maybe it's like a whitewash. I'm not really getting a
Yep.
lot of information about it. I do feel
Yep.
like it could literally be like a washing out, because I have seen for over a year and a half, I have seen, and again, not giving financial advice or anything, but I have seen the dollar falling, and there's a trapeze net. Trapeze nets are bouncy. The dollar falls, it bounces back up. So what
Yep.
I took that as is the old is collapsing and there's a new that's rising up to replace it. So there may be
Brilliant.
like chaos and stuff, not bad, no depressions, nothing like the 2008 crash or anything like that. There's not going to be like a crash. It's literally like something falling and the new coming right in to take its place.
Yeah.
Um, April, I can't see anything with April. It's like literally not there. I don't know what that means. Maybe
Mm.
I'll know next time we do a live. Right now, it's like not there. May is it's gray, and what I'm picking up from that is there's going to be um, possibly some false flag world events. Again, not to cause fear or anything. Have no fear because you can, not on my timeline. That kind of thing. Just feel like it's their they know they've lost. They're just
Yeah.
doing that last ditch effort to try and because they live off of our fear. So if they can
Yeah.
still get fear, then they still can have energy to survive. So
Yeah.
it's but I don't feel like it's going to be kind of like what happened here in the States on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, where they had that, you know, in New Orleans and in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So while I'm not downsizing those at all. They were small in comparison to, say, 9/11. I'm not
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
9/11 event. So
Yeah.
now for me, I'm seeing like when we did our spaces last year, I had said I had saw the gold coming in April. That has been moved back to the end of June, like around June 21st, first day of summer for us here in the northern hemisphere. And the gold is like going on. Will that move? I don't know. But it kind of correlates with like what you're saying with the celebrations and stuff happening. And
Does. Yeah.
at the end of June going into July. I have seen like a lot of celebratory stuff happening here in the States because there's a lot of things falling away, a lot of things that need to fall away that I'm having to watch my words. I don't get flagged
Yeah.
when
No.
stuff on
It's hard.
YouTube. Um, that need to go. So just think about things that are very controlling, things um that restrict our lives in so many ways will will be abolished and they won't be there anymore. Now from September, I'm not seeing a lot with August. And ironically, I'm not seeing like as of right now, because I also saw this last year, I was only seeing like tropical depressions, maybe one or two tropical storms. I was not seeing the hurricanes that we had this
Yeah.
last year in 2024. So I know those things were fabricated, like they were made. So I've been working really hard since then so that nothing like that happens. And I know I'm one person, but I know there's other people doing this too. And when we all
Yeah.
work on
Yeah.
the same thing together, we can create this. Just like with the fires in LA. I was like trying to calm the winds down and like make it rain and stuff. We are all powerful beings that we can do this. And when we work together, we can make those things happen. So when something happens or when something is starting to happen, like a storm or something, we can work together to downsize it or even like make it go away.
Yeah.
So for next year, or this year, I'm not seeing any big storms in the summer for like the United States.
Good.
I'm declaring that. But
Yeah. I love it.
so we'll see. We'll see. Um but September what's interesting is from September through the end of the year, it's I'm not seeing like certain things in particular. I am seeing one individual in particular. His name's like been everywhere. He is
Okay.
connected with Allie Carter. Um,
Okay.
it's from September through December where it is like it's jammed packed. I mean, like the calendar date, because I'm always shown the calendars. It's like all brown colored, but it's like a pretty brown color. And there's like
Okay.
some gold in there, but it's like if you were looking at a calendar and you were like, oh wow, I'm going to be really busy this month, but it's for the rest of the year from September through December, and it is jammed packed. So I think like it does match up with what you're saying, where there's going to be like so much stuff coming out so much, so many people coming forward. I have seen about like the judicial system, the judges, but I'm not seeing that until like in 2026, where all of
Yeah,
that stuff is going to come out.
yeah,
And it could be like, like you said, like in December, but what I feel, and I feel like all of that like crowdedness stuff is, and it literally could be that color could be, and I don't like saying like celebrities or whatever, it could be how they see themselves, and they're all jam packed into those 4 months,
yeah,
and things are being exposed and brought to the surface. And like, there's a lot of people that they're going to have their minds blown with all of the stuff that's going to come out
yeah,
about them and what they've been involved in, and what goes on when they're not
yeah.
on a movie screen or singing in the radio. Or
And we're talking irrefutable proof, things that just cannot be ignored or faked.
And I feel when you mentioned Allie Carter, I think, I mean, you said February, but I feel like it could be any day,
Yeah,
any day.
yeah,
Because whenever, like, I don't know, when I see something she posts, or I tune into when she's doing a live, like her energy, it feels like this, like it's just ready. It's ready to
yes,
launch. It's ready to go.
yeah, yeah.
So, and she's got a lot of information.
She has. Yeah, it's shifted from the fear when I first started seeing her coming out. It was the fear around she had to be homeless, and she was angry and she was just really full on, which is fair enough. And it shifted now to she is empowered. She's got this, yeah. And you can see she just desperately wants to say what's actually going to come, but she can't do it yet. Yeah,
Very close
power
though.
stuff.
So, you got time to answer some questions?
Absolutely.
All right. So, Holly and Peter, have you been keeping an eye on the chat? Because I have not.
I have been in the chat. It's been a fun little chat. I haven't seen any questions necessarily in the chat. So if people want to raise their hands, and
Addie has
looks
her
like
hand.
Addie has her hand raised.
How do I? Go ahead, Addie.
Hello, everyone. It's
So
so nice
gorgeous.
to see you both. I love you guys so much.
So good to see you, Helen.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a question about Ascension. So, my friend, as you know, Rachel, you know him, he is also going through an Ascension. So, he's going up the level, he's gold. So, he's going to be blue crystalline. And the way his Ascension is manifesting is he's getting these marks, like blue marks on his body.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and
Wow.
like everything else, the brain fog and everything. So when he was talking to me, I was like, you're going through an ascension. And he doesn't know what an ascension is.
Yeah.
So when I spoke to his guides gave me an interesting answer. And he was like, I was like, what is happening to him? Why is he getting these marks? And they were like, this is how he perceives this. That is why he's getting these manifestations of them. So my question is, does our fear and the way we perceive reflect on the symptoms we have during ascension? And if that is how it happens, then can we have like a smoother transition to whatever level we are going up?
Absolutely. So it can be a consent thing. So I hope it's okay, Angie, to answer this one first, and then you can answer. Um, with the blue crystalline frequency upgrade, it can be a very conscious thing. And I know many people who went through a conscious experience. So people who don't even know about the way that, or the different frequencies and what colors they are. One friend told me she woke up in the middle of the night and her room was blue. She was gold previously. So it was just perfect. It was, and I was able to explain to her what was going on. I've had a lot of I had a really weird experience myself when I transitioned to that frequency, was very conscious. I had to go to bed at a particular time, 9 o'clock on a 9 day, numerology wise. And then I was told, once that ascension had occurred, I had to give up my job that day. I had a normal job. Well, not normal, I was a psychic, but I was on a psychic line and I had to give it up that day. And everything just went, gangbusters from there. So that was just something that I had to do. Great job, lovely people, but it just wasn't what I was supposed to be doing anymore. So yes, 100%. If you have, with the particular individual you're speaking of, I think the manifestation would need to be that significant for them to allow themselves to believe that they had got to that level, because there's a humbleness there that doesn't recognize the gifts and abilities. So that is just so beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, because that's another wonderful story of this shifting. Most soul frequency shifts, you're not necessarily aware of it. And unless you know someone who can read your aura and tell you what's going on, you wouldn't really know. But the blue crystalline frequency shift is really, really obvious and weird. So Angie?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. That was when you said with the marks, I was like, oh, that's a definite sign. Because I was remember I told you when I took methylene blue, I started it at the end of May, and then all of a sudden I just didn't need it. My muscle testing said I didn't need it anymore in August, and that's when I had went to blue crystalline. So, and then with this last ascension with the diamond, I always put myself, I've done it for like 30 years. I put myself in a gold bubble of light. I cover and fill myself in gold light. That's what my color's always been. I've tried to use different colors, even when I was trying, like, okay, I'm going up to blue crystalline, or I'm going to go to diamond. I could not make the colors go around me. Well, I was working with Addie, and I was like, when I went to do my light and stuff before, all of a sudden, like when I put it around, it was platinum, it was diamond, and that's the first time, and it was just easy. It just went. I'm like, oh wow. So it was, you just have all of these little synchronicities that are like telling you what's happening. Maybe you're being pulled to, like you say, like you're being pulled to a certain color that you don't normally like. And
Oh,
that's
absolutely. Or a desire to eat foods, like I said with the methylene blue. I went through the same process. I stopped taking it in December because I didn't need it anymore.
yeah.
So yeah, these processes will occur, and you might have attractions to certain food and clothing. The
Yes.
color, the hue, the frequency of the clothes that you have, your furnishings, it can shift and change. And it can be very sudden. Suddenly you want to wear yellow or gold or white. The white soul frequencies, you just want to wear white all the time. And that diamond also, it goes back to wanting to wear white all the time when you go to the diamond frequency as well. It's just, that's all you want to wear. It's really unusual and interesting. Yeah. So favorite colors can change as you go along.
So you were talking about the emeralds next after the diamond. Is it
It's on a par. It's on a par. So what I thought, so there's a bifurcation that occurs after graduation. So once you get to a violet level, you're a graduate soul on the altruistic end of the spectrum. If you're a dark soul, you'll go down to red. Um, from the violet, you'll either go to pink or white. So emerald is at the end of the pink chain. Diamond is at the end of the white chain. So you
okay.
go up levels. I thought we all went back up to diamond. The emerald just keeps coming through over and over and over again. There are a bunch of little emerald soul children coming through. So that's what it was explained to me, that's how it works. I was shown this years ago, but it didn't make sense. So I just tried to push it away. It didn't fit with it's like whites and pinks, and it's like, why would there be one branch and another branch? It didn't make any
Right.
sense to me. But it does now. It does make a lot of sense to me now.
I'd be interested to see if there is another like level to go up.
Well,
up.
there is, and that's why I call that platinum now instead of
Okay.
diamond. There is another level above that. So you may have achieved that. You may have already gone to there, and that's why you're getting platinum.
Okay. That's weird. Yeah, because I always say who knows?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you got
So
to go with what your gut tells you.
yes. All right. Thank you, Addie, for your question.
Thank you.
Ladies, I forgot. Asta did ask a question in the chat. I'm failing my job already. Her question was, do you believe our bodies hold weight when there is something wrong, i.e. health issue, especially unknown?
Absolutely. I'm not saying that this is something that's going on with Asta, but I've also noticed because I work with a lot of people who've been abused in childhood. So childhood trauma, whether it's sexual or otherwise, can also bring on excess weight. And the way I describe that and having a really high soul frequency can also bring on extra weight because you're trying to protect the soul. So the body doesn't house the soul. The soul houses the body in soul frequency, which is the aura, and it operates the body through the meridians and chakras. So if you have a high frequency, and every time, and you're an empath and you don't know how to protect your energy, and every time you interact with somebody, you get drained, you will get a bigger body to try and hold more of that soul frequency in the body. So it's not, your soul frequency is not as exposed. There's so many different reasons why people can hold weight, but I think the main reason can be trauma. For instance, there are people in my family who were terribly abused, haven't recognized it, and are terribly overweight, shocking thyroid problems because they won't speak out. Okay, so you've got these different reasons why weight happens. And again, if you've got a lot of toxins in your body, if you eat a lot of junk food, your body will create pockets where they hold all the toxins, because if it all comes out at once, oh my gosh, you're going to have skin outbreaks and all sorts of problems, hair will fall out. So instead it holds it in these pockets to be dealt with at a later date. And that's another reason why people have extra weight. There's also the issue of, if you have been abused, you will put on weight to protect yourself from the attractions of others. If you think that you're less attractive that way, there are a lot of people who feel much more attractive when they're bigger bodied, and that's a beautiful thing. And if people feel attractive that way, that's wonderful. And a lot of people are attracted to people who are bigger bodied, but that's just one other thing as well. That can be an issue. It can be a way of trying to hide. Don't look at me as a sexual object. So that's just some of the things that come to mind with that. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Samuel has messaged me and said that he has been trying to join the Zoom, but he hasn't been able to connect. Is it something where someone needs to let him in?
No.
He's not showing up.
Huh.
Wait, it says 1 in the waiting room.
Oh, well,
iPhone 183, is that him?
Let's see.
I'm
not sure. I'm guessing probably him.
He's in now. Samuel, let's see. Okay. Hopefully he's in. I'll let him in. Hopefully it's Samuel.
I see iPhone 183. He's in.
Okay. Samuel Jepson, say you're here. You guys should remember his name. Okay. Who else has a question or comment? Don't be shy. Normally, everybody has their hand up. Nina?
I have a question.
Nina, cool.
Yes. Sorry, because I cannot find where the hand raising is. So thank you. Rachel, so nice to see you. And Angie, nice to meet you. So thank you. I'm happy to be here. I have a question regarding when you were talking about seeing lithium. So I live in Asheville, North Carolina, where we had the hurricane that hit in September. And as we probably know, or maybe that it was probably a land grab for lithium mines, which, there is a $90 million contract about an hour and a half away for lithium mines to start, actually, I think this month.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what my question is about. When you're saying that you're seeing no lithium, and we have lots of lithium mines here, do you see that they're going to be moving forward with that in the area, or maybe it will just...
So I can see that they will certainly try, but I can see that the backlash is so intense that there might be something that also is in the area that's not just lithium. So then they might try and focus on that. They probably will do some clandestine lithium mining at the same time, but they're not going to find a market for it.
Okay. That's good. Good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darlene. Really good question.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm seeing the same thing. I didn't say that earlier, but all of I thought it was funny anyway when they were coming out with all the electric cars and the smart meters on the homes and even the solar panels on the homes. I was like, why are they doing this? It's not going to last. And I couldn't figure out, that's the message I was receiving. And so with Rachel, saying that, that's what I've been seeing all along is it's just going to it's almost like it's just going to disappear. It's all just going to go away. The bad thing is all those people in North Carolina and Tennessee, what happened to them, it's just infuriating.
It is just horrific. that's something for people to pay attention to as well. So every house that you see with solar panels has a smart meter. And if you've got a bunch of smart meters on your street, those houses are going to burn down. That puts your house in danger. So if you're in the market for a house, don't buy a house in a street that's got solar panels on every house.
Right.
Avoid them.
Yep. 100%.
Thank you both.
You're welcome. Okay. Kristen.
Hello.
Hello, Kristen. Good to
Hi,
see you.
Rachel. Hi, Angie. Good to see you too. And hi, everyone. I was just wondering, with health and body issues, how do you know if it's an ascension symptom or not?
Very good question. So I guess if it is an ascension symptom, then one way to ameliorate it is to start to clean up your health. So, or the things that you're taking into your body. So if you're having symptoms that are very uncomfortable, and say you're still drinking alcohol, but you're a high frequency soul, it might be an idea to cut that down and see if that actually helps to cope with the ascension symptoms. Because one of the factors with the ascension symptoms is if you keep doing what you normally would do, you're going to get feeling uncomfortable. The body will feel uncomfortable. So just try and cut out some of those things. I've talked recently about the fact that I've just cut grains out of my diet. I've eaten grains my whole life. I was vegetarian for 10 years. I relied on grains. But my body kept telling me with this pain that I had in my lower body, in my hips, where I was hobbling around every time I stood up. You know, it was just ridiculous. So my body kept saying, you know, something's going on here. I tried many different things. The methylene blue helped a lot to get rid of the pain, but I didn't want to take it forever, and it just felt like I shouldn't take it in December. So then I just cut grains out. End of November, early December, just started cutting out grains and sugar. And pain's gone. So that's a really good way to say I don't have to cover it up. I don't have to take anything like methylene blue to ameliorate it. I just need to make a shift in my diet, and it made a huge difference.
Fantastic. Yeah, look, I regard myself as sort of pretty fit and healthy and very conscious of my diet. I don't really drink and I don't eat junk food and stuff. And so maybe it's just a physical thing that's happened because maybe it's not an ascension symptom then.
Well, it could be that even with all of that you've done, there's other things that could be changed in your environment, or the work that you're doing might be too much for your body, and you might need to get away from screens or get away from being inside if you've got artificial lighting, or you know, things like that might also, because the higher the frequency that you are, the more of these what would seem like small things will have a larger effect.
Okay.
It can also mean that there's some bigger picture thing that you're supposed to do with your life, and your body's telling you, get away from whatever else you're doing and do this something else. But, you know, you might already be doing what your soul purpose is. So that's just something for other people to hear in case it helps them.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
I know, like, I used to have migraines every day. They started when I was 15, and they, with the Lyme, they got worse, and they called Lyme headaches or whatever. Now, recently, in the last, I think it was around New Year's Eve, I had like a horrific migraine that came out of nowhere. And I use natural stuff. I use Butterbur to get rid of my migraines now when they come. And normally it takes care of it, you know, with 1 or 2 doses of the Butterbur. Nothing was working. And it lasted for 3 or 4 days. And so I attributed it to the Ascension because it had started, once I looked back on everything, it had started on December 13th, which I had pulled 2 all-nighters in a row, which typically with Ascensions, when you'll be experiencing symptoms for several weeks before you acclimate to that new frequency. For me, when I have like a night of no sleep or 2 nights of no sleep, that's when I'm like breaking through to that Ascension. And then and I had the headaches and all of that. So the acclimation part for me like comes afterwards. But usually I have all these signs like that, and nothing will help. Like, you know, if you have like a stuffy nose or you have a fever, they call it Ascension flu, because you can have like flu-like symptoms with the Ascension. Yeah. So you kind of just have to be like really in tune with your body to know what's going on. And if I was even going through like, okay, am I low on magnesium, potassium? Like do I need some B vitamins? Like I was trying to figure out everything, and I was putting extra in with my diet, but nothing was working. And then it clicked. It's Ascension. So you kind of like, you have to just make a make a list and be like, what's this? What's that? But yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, thanks to both of you.
You're
Great
welcome.
question. Now, Aditi. Sorry, she's been waiting
I'm
for.
sorry. I always have so many questions.
It's all good. It's all good, darling.
So, so this happened today, but like the larger thing happened before. So I always visualize my protection as a blue sphere, then a diamond sphere, and then there's this new sphere that popped up. It's like an iridescent sphere of light that is like pinkish in color. And then I was locating my energy source inside me. There's a vortex that is pinkish in color inside me.
Wow.
So is that how we somehow choose where we are moving next on the soul, like soul level or soul frequency?
Do you have a sensation of where that vortex might be in the body?
Yes, somewhere here, like around my gut.
Okay, because I know that people describe the higher heart being pink.
Yeah. Like
That-
my friend has it in his heart, but it's a different color.
Okay.
And I can sense like with different people, it's different color. Like a friend of mine has it in blue. I
Yeah.
don't know where exactly it's located, but
Yeah.
mine is pinkish. And that is why I was thinking maybe that is how we decide where we go on soul level. Because I don't know what soul level comes up after diamond.
So, and frankly, I've only seen the platinum after diamond, so I don't know either. I haven't been shown that yet. So it could be a higher level. Again, there could be a higher frequency. What it also could mean, you've gone on the gold soul trajectory. You went the bifurcation with the white, then the gold and the blue crystalline. So what I would say is, because that's the opposite to the pink, there may be, pink souls are very justice driven. So there could be something for you at that level where you're pulling in the justice or the I just keep getting justice with that. Justice. But again, just because I see that gradation system and it's for me it's fixed doesn't mean I'm right. It doesn't mean that there's not some other pink shift that can happen. You can swap over. You could easily. What it could also mean is that some people are usher souls and they have every color in the soul system, and they're rare but they're spectacular. And they can appear as different colors at different times, or they can have the whole rainbow behind them. I've actually read for people and I've just seen these striations of rainbow frequency behind them on the wall, just beautiful. And there's no crystal in the room to do it. There's no prism doing it. So their job is to work as like it's not their job, but they often go into work as like a death doula, or they can work in aged care or with people who are passing over, or they work purely on a spiritual level to help souls who need to pass from one dimension to another. And it's not a fun soul frequency to have. It's probably the most powerful and intense. And I'm going to say difficult just because it's a big job. But that's another soul frequency that is quite rare. And that could be what's going on.
Oh, I think you're right, because I've been sending these dark energies to God. So is this
Okay.
what?
That could be what
Okay.
you're doing, Della.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I was also getting, Addie, that you are to tap into the unconditional love frequency, like to bring that in to not only further heal yourself, but to project that out. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's what I was getting like the whole time like you guys were talking. So it was like you were supposed, almost like I was seeing like the pink like swallow you up, but in a good way. And then you were like going like this, like with the pink. So
Yeah, that's because I've like stored my heart in such a like cold container all my life, because I was like, I had so much love to give, but people were not receptive. So I was like, I'll just store it away and never see it so that I don't get hurt. And now, like only now that I'm like in connection with spirits and everything, I see them giving me unconditional love. So I'm like, better bring it back. So I'm like slowly thawing my heart again, if that makes sense. But yeah, that makes absolute sense to me. Thank you so much.
Hey, who else has a question? Questions? Nikki, did you have a question? I saw you pop up. Kristen, Nikki. She's in there. Who else? Anybody? Asta. Oh, Holly. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Asta. I'll wait.
I just had a comment. I just wanted to say how beautiful these Zoom sessions are, how they just, there's so much love in the room, even though we're not all in the same room. It feels like we are all in the same room. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. I wish I could share it with so many more people, especially all the people in my life that are close by, trying to explain to them. It is frustrating, especially when it's like the closest person, like your partner, for example, and he's just not on the same levels. And I see he's got a rash on his face right now. And when you were talking about Ascension, symptoms, I'm like, whoa, that's what's happening. How do I tell him that? Because he's not the same path and everything. And I'm learning so much about numerology right now. So I'm starting to understand him more.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm starting to channel and everything. I'm thinking, oh, okay, it's not his fault. It's not his problem. Okay, how do I help him? But I just want to say thank you to everybody here, how beautiful it is and how loving it feels. It's just,
thank you, darling.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Angie and Rachel, for making this happen. It's just, I want to cry.
I wish I could give you a hug.
I know.
Thank you so much. And it's always the way, you put yourself out there to do something like this, because I've got all these trolls, and we were talking about this beforehand, Peter and Angie and I, about if someone, certain names come in, I wanted to be co-host so I could get rid of them, and then I'm getting the downloads, and I had just beforehand that it wasn't going to happen, and here we are with all these beautiful souls, and it's just the right combination of beautiful souls and the right number for this meeting. So thank you for pointing that out. The love in the room is spectacular.
It is. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here, Asta. Okay. Holly, you had something to say, right? And then Kristen's got her hand up.
Yes. I've talked to Angie about this a lot, but I'm always trying to make it make sense in my head. With I don't know, the bifurcation, I guess. What you're seeing, Rachel, is kind of the split. That's interesting. I remember Dolores Cannon saying the same thing, that she saw just kind of almost like a mitosis, like these two earths kind of splitting apart. Yeah. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around how does that work? I mean, so if we're talking about like predictions for 2025, like, does that apply to everyone? Or as things kind of go like this, like, does that affect some people and not others? And then also you were talking about, we might see people dying, and that's kind of how the separation happens. So, and then Angie was saying, it's almost like you just lose touch with people. So I always ask Angie this, like, what if it's someone who lives in your house, like a spouse, let's say, like, how does that work if you don't end up you don't end up on the same frequency, I guess. So I'm sorry, that's kind of two questions, but.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So again, I don't want to cause anybody any distress, but if you look around you, people are unfortunately passing, and it's just, it's horrible. But again, who are we to judge what choices they've made on a soul level that they might not want to come into this new frequency, or they might want to come back as one of these new babies with these incredibly high soul frequencies. There is a certain level of self-sacrifice involved with those that have taken this, so that the rest of us would learn not to ever again, and we wouldn't do this to babies anymore. So they have ascended on a soul level, maybe not in that physical body. They might still be, under the mind control, but they might leave because on a soul level, they recognize, I've done the work, I took the self-sacrifice, I'm going to come back as a higher level soul, and I'm going to make sure that, in my generation, we're going to make sure that these things never happen. So that's like a karmic imprint too, in a way, even though I feel like karma is being dissolved to a degree at the moment. I don't think we're going to be carrying karma from one lifetime to another in the same way. I feel like it's not something that's forced upon a soul now in this fifth dimensional frequency. It's a choice. And with regards to those around us who don't necessarily aren't ascending at the same frequency, or sorry, at the same rate, again, I feel this bifurcation of the earth wasn't immediate. It's energetically. So if you think of the, say, you see the mitosis, the area around the cells that have pulled apart, there's still that atmosphere around them. So it's still going to pull apart over the next 2 years, I feel. It's not an immediate thing. So some souls will ascend. They will, over this next couple of years of absolutely being hammered with truth, they will bring themselves up to a higher frequency or make the choice to make the changes and accept reality the way that we understand it to get to that higher level. So I hope that answers the question. Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
I also think that people that are, if they're living in a house with someone that is a lower vibrational than them, while that lower vibrational can pull you down, you also, being a higher vibration, can lift them up, can pull them, can help pull them up so that, you know, they start that awakening process. They start realizing things. They start shedding, you know, what no longer serves them and that toxic energy that's keeping them at a lower vibration. I think it's possible for everyone to change and evolve. I don't think that anyone is doomed to be stuck anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Kristen?
I just wanted to validate what you said before, Angie, that you saw me pop up. Like I took that you felt that I had a question, even though I didn't put my hand up. And I was ruminating on a question that was sort of, I
There
don't know,
I go.
was that right?
Yeah. See, I told you guys, I'm like, I'm doing that lately where I'm you know, I'm ahead. I'm like time traveling. I'm ahead of all you guys.
Well, I was ruminating on a question that I sort of decided I wouldn't ask, but then when you said that, I thought, oh, I want to validate what you just said, but also, and so I may as well. It was just about auras, and you know, just looking at the plain backgrounds, I can see etherics, but I can't see any colors. So, yeah, I don't know. My question is about. I mean, I've done Rachel's course, so I know that, you know, you can develop that. And
Have you had much opportunity to practice, Kristen?
no, actually, I haven't. So that's the
It's
key.
with the practice that it comes in. So my dear friend who did my very first course in December of 23 before I put it out publicly, she did the course then. I taught the same concept. It wasn't until about 6 months ago that she contacted me and said, I was with a client and suddenly I could see her aura.
Oh, wow.
It was just an instantaneous thing. She wasn't even looking for it. Just a
Right.
big pink cloud around this person.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, it'll come when it's supposed to. She'd also gone up a level at that point, so that the opening of those abilities was heightened. I think we all have the ability to do it at any point, but it gets heightened with each soul frequency upgrade.
Right. Okay.
But practice does make perfect. And again, letting the eyes go out of focus as you look at somebody against a light background is the way to go. And if you've got a lazy pet, get them to sit against a white wall or something out in the sun, and watch their aura too, because animals have auras too.
Oh, okay. So it's the same way that you would see an etheric, like with the lazy eyes.
Yes.
And just stay with that, and
Yeah.
something might happen eventually.
Yeah. And it's usually, you'll see it around, usually one side of the head is more clear than the other. So if you start to see them on one side of that person's head or any person's head or animal's head or whatever, then start to always allow your eyes to be in that direction, because it might be that side of the, for some reason, you're picking it up on that side.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No worries.
That's funny. I thought she
All right,
had
darling, I think we're going to have to wrap it up pretty soon because we've been going for a while.
I agree. I just looked at the time. I was like, woo. Okay.
Where did it go?
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here today, especially Rachel. It's been awesome. So we will be putting this up. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. Hey guys, it's Angie Suddoth Walsh, and you just watched the first episode of Spiritual Chat Live with my first guest and dear friend, Rachel Vaughan. You can find Rachel at her website, sixscience.com. She's also on Instagram, Facebook, and X. And this video right here will be uploaded to her YouTube and Rumble channels. In the future, I will be doing Spiritual Chat Lives twice a month with Rachel coming back because we're going to be doing the prediction series, as well as guests like Georgina Grace, who's a numerology and intuitive wonder woman, and Lisa Houghton. She's from the UK, and you might know her on Instagram as Simply Anxious. So if you would like to be notified of future Spiritual Chat Lives, simply drop me an email to theoracleblonde@gmail.com, and I will let you know of upcoming guests, as well as sending you the Zoom links, because I really like how this went with inviting people in and sending them the Zoom links, having the live, and then putting it on here. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next time.